So first off, can you tell us a little bit about Houdini and Doyle? Because at this point, it's quite. This is ages before the premiere, so we don't know a lot. So what can you tell us?
Well, it's pretty much like Victorian era X-Files. You've got these two absolutely brilliant minds with very different worldviews, and they come together to solve these inexplicable, seemingly supernatural crimes.
And your character, as I understand it, is the first female constable.
Yeah, the first female police constable in Scotland Yard.
And is she based on fact?
Yes, there was an Adelaide Stratton. Historically, the character is a little bit different. I think the writers sort of Adelaide and molded her into the character in the show. And Adelaide Stratton herself was a bit difficult to track down. It wasn't really till I spoke with them did I actually figure out who she was. But there's tons of women of that era that I could read about and sort of absorb their knowledge.
If you see that expression on my face, you'll know what's going on.
I did a lot of that, a lot of reading.
Okay.
That's cool. So what's she like? What's in this show? What's her take?
Well, I mean, she's what's her take on the supernatural, or like?
Well, and everything in general, because I mean, obviously, the two sides of this would be Houdini and Doyle being such huge celebrities of the time, I would say.
Right, so they are kind of anomalies, both of them, and they're from two very different camps of thinking. And Adelaide, she kind of represents everybody else of that time. In that period, the world was in flux. I mean, we're in the Industrial Revolution. We still have a lot of people prescribing to superstitions and religious values, but then, of course, the world of science is just like dumping information and new knowledge on everybody. So it's difficult. It's difficult to figure out what to make of these situations, and so I think Adelaide is very aware of her ambivalence. She's not always sure what to make of these situations, and she takes from Doyle and she takes from Houdini, but as a result of her not exactly knowing what's going on, I think she just tries to be as practical as possible. She's a very practical woman.
And how do we first get introduced to her? What's the first moment that we're going to see of her?
The first time you see Adelaide, she has been summoned from somewhere in the bowels of Scotland Yard, where she has been filing and making coffee for everybody else for God knows how long. And Chief Inspector Maring, he's the Chief Inspector of Scotland Yard, has decided that this is the perfect way of getting this woman thing out of his hair. And he sends her off with Houdini and Doyle, and little does he know this is the greatest thing he could have ever done for her.
And does she have more of an affinity towards one of them? Is there a connection here?
I mean, affinity to their belief system, to what she believes. Even
just how they operate. Does she seem to connect more as it goes with one of them?
I mean, she develops this sort of really strong friendship with Houdini, and I mean, they have a bit of a struggle because, of course, Houdini is used to a certain kind of woman, and he's used to treating women a certain way. But after all, he's never met a woman quite like Adelaide. No one really has. And so they struggle with that a little bit, but once they get over that, they learn that they can trust each other, and I think there's a very respectful friendship that develops between them. And then with Doyle, I mean, Doyle's a gentleman at the end. And this sort of chivalry also is a flavor of misogyny in a way, and so Adelaide kind of has to set me straight on that. Like, there's no need to protect me. I don't need any help. I'm very capable of protecting myself. And again, they develop a very respectful relationship, and she can trust him with her own personal dramas, and when she is ready to maybe be protected or needs a little protection,
And on that, wow.
So then, along the way, the story is obviously set mostly to begin with in England, but along the way, things move to Canada.
yes.
Can you explain a little how that comes about?
Well, so we have Houdini's an American,
Right.
and so he's got a whole life in America, and it just so happens that they the mystery, or Adelaide's sort of personal drama, her personal mystery that she's solving throughout the series, it looks like something may be going on across the pond in America, and so they decide that they're going to go over and check it out for
Right.
Adelaide's sake. But it just so happens that there are inexplicable happenings going on all over the world, and of course these three, they're so curious, they can't resist. They just can't resist going and checking out these other crimes.
Nice.
They end up solving a few along the way.
Cool. Well, then to backtrack, I realized something I didn't ask was, are you playing a British accent, or you are?
Yeah, Adelaide.
How's that?
It's not so bad.
That sounds scary to most people, I think.
Yeah, it wasn't. I mean, I have done accents before. I've played parts that where I've had to do an accent.
Right.
I went to theater school, and they do kind of give you some tools at least to begin learning accents, and then of course they hooked me up with a fantastic dialect coach
Cool.
who really helped me sort of nail in those nuances and that wonderful sense of Victorian era British.
Right. And can you give us a sample of
Oh
the...
my god.
Everyone's asking you this, right? You're like,
What am I supposed to say?
what can you say?
I can say anything you want me to say.
Oh, well, let's see. Gee, I don't know what line to feed you here.
Okay, well, that's all right. I'll tell you a little bit about, well, actually, one thing I should tell you is that a lot of people asked me if I was going to do an accent on set, and they said it was really, really helpful and all that, but what I'm doing right now is actually really difficult for me, because it's when you don't have lines written in front of you that you can practice, it's really difficult to just riff and just put on a British accent and speak like that all the time. And I think that's enough.
I can't help but think of Orphan Black, because so often I hear about people talking about their accents, and so it is amazing to hear actors jump in and out of it. So I can understand how challenging it is. So then, on the other side, can you talk at all about some of the things we can expect throughout the series, like some of the maybe hints about some of the cases or anything?
Oh, sure. I mean, when you think of supernatural, I mean, just what does that mean to you? And you're probably going to see a little bit of that in the show. We deal with what looks like ghosts. We deal with what looks like vampires, aliens, all of these things, all of these questions that we're still asking ourselves and that we're still curious about. Believe it or not, they all existed back then. I mean, this isn't fiction. A lot of the storylines were based on real, documented events of monsters and blood-sucking creatures, and it's really wonderful to talk to the writers about just where they got their inspiration, because it's not from their imagination necessarily.
That's cool.
Yeah. So it's kind of cool to think that whatever you can imagine, it's not so far out there. Someone else has thought about it, and there's probably historical records that prove that someone else was thinking about it.
In terms of the storylines, is there a Jack the Ripper kind of, like that story sometimes comes up as suggesting supernatural sometimes, but generally speaking, it's maybe a bit more humdrum than supernatural.
What's interesting because there's a monster that we deal with. You know, we encounter monsters every once in a while, and there's sort of an interesting monster that appears a lot in the historical documentation of the time, named Spring Heel Jack.
Right.
And that's a real character, and he's kind of Jack the Ripper-esque, but he's I don't know, possibly inhuman. He's a very shadowy figure, similar to Jack the Ripper, but I don't know. He's got a few more superpowers.
Cool. And did you have a favorite storyline or episode that we can look forward to?
To be honest, I really like the Spring Heel Jack episode.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. He's this very shadowy monster, and the episode where it's a lot of shadows, a lot of running around in alleyways, and a lot of seeing something maybe, and people aren't quite sure what they saw or what they're feeling. And of course with that episode, we had some very talented stunt people.
Okay.
And
those are always fun episodes, right?
I love stunt actors. I just think they're modern, they're the real superheroes.
Right.
Like, they have real superpowers in my head, or as close to what you're going to find. So I just loved having them around and watching them do their work.
Nice. Well, thank you very much. Pleasure chatting.
Yeah, thank you.
We can't wait to see the episodes.
Me neither.